Meditate and Mingle is not just a convenient play on my name. It's my personal oxymoron, my yin-yang, and my Libra scales. It's the balancing act that exists within me. Meditate describes the side of me that is intuitive, spiritually grounded, and individualized. While the Mingle is my social butterfly. I'm people-oriented and I have a talkative side. Bringing them together allows me to reach out to you. So join the mental mingle and meditate on a few thoughts with yours truly, Dr. Melissa Tate. Thank you for tuning in to the only station giving you double the information and inspiration. WDRB Media and WGIV, the soul of Charlotte. My soul got a little crazy today. This is Meditate and Mingle, and I'm your host, Dr. Melissa Tate, a.k.a. Ms. Meditate and Mingle. Happy Sunday afternoon to my minglers and my listeners that are so faithful in joining me each and every Sunday. Thank you for joining me again today. As I mentioned last week, I have a co-host with me today. We're going to do a little more relationship Q&A, and you guys have been sending in questions, and she had some of her followers send some questions, and so we are ready. Miss Morgan E. Ray in the studio with me today.
Hello.
Yes, and Morgan is a relationship and sex therapist, so those of you who did not join us last week, you definitely missed some nitty-gritty conversation about all sorts of sexy things.
Yes. Well, it'll be even better this
Sunday. Today we're really going to delve into some of these questions that inquiring minds want to know.
Yes.
So where should we begin? One of the questions that came in, or one of the thoughts that came to my mind was about sexual compatibility.
Yes.
Like when you have this guy that you really like and he's cute and he's got a good job and it's fabulous, and then you kiss and it's a little awkward, and then you're like, well, it was just one kiss, not that big a deal, and then things go on and it doesn't necessarily match.
Chemistry's not there.
Yeah, the chemistry's all jacked up. What do we do?
Is it a deal breaker?
For me?
Yes. And I think that is what it comes down to in terms of sexual compatibility. Is this there or it's not?
Yeah.
And then, sometimes I tell couples, you have however long you want to work on it, know? So, but I think that sexual compatibility for me goes alongside with communication. And like, how am I going to tell you what I need and what I want? And I want to know what you need and want. And so, I'm not going to say that it's impossible to build it, but I don't want to say that it's impossible to build it.
Okay.
Never say never.
I do never say never.
So I think that try.
Try and keep trying.
Yeah.
And does it get better?
I think through communication. But, who that person is in their core and how they feel about themselves sexually. I don't think that it's right to try to change anyone. And I don't think, and women get caught up in this, and men do the same thing of like, oh, I can change them to be this.
Yes.
And they're not. We are who we are at our core, and it's either there or it's not.
Agreed.
So, sexual incompatibility, the first kiss is, and then the first, kind of, and then you discuss it and talk about it, and then you try again, and it's just not there. It's probably not going to be there.
It's probably not going to be there, which of course brings up the point of female orgasm and that orgasm gap.
Yes, which is huge.
Reaching climax 10 times more than you are, and you're having sex, but you're not quite getting there.
Right.
That's a problem.
That is a big problem. And a lot of people don't acknowledge that problem because there is a large orgasm gap between partners, not so much in same-sex partners, but in heterosexual partners. 90% of men report that they orgasm 100% of the time. And so
that's pretty good.
Yeah, but with women, and we could talk all day about biologically speaking why we orgasm and all that, but how to get there, I think there's a lack of knowledge out there about how to get a woman to orgasm.
And that's so sad. It's 2015. But I think you also said something really poignant, which is in heterosexual relationships, there is more of a lack of orgasm as opposed to in same-sex relationships. So it's kind of like, women know what women want, men know what feels good to another man, but why can't we communicate that, in heterosexual relationships?
And I think that a good man will help his
Educate
lady,
himself, yes.
and it will be a 1-to-1 ratio,
Right.
or close to it. But I think that involves opening yourself up and being vulnerable. And I don't mean the term vulnerable in a weak way. I mean it as a transparent kind of way. That that maybe he needs to watch you masturbate, or you need to have sex in a position that it's similar to how you masturbate. And I think a lot of women only masturbate in one way, where they need to expand their horizons and use different things or different positions and everything to make sure that it's not just a one-way thing.
Right.
And a lot of men, it takes 10 minutes of direct, generally 10 minutes of direct clitoral stimulation. And if oral sex is on the table and the man feels her responding in a positive way, typically they'll stop what they're doing or move, or they'll have an orgasm. And so, it involves talking about it and communicating about where your pleasure zones are, what makes you feel good, and getting in the mood, especially when you have family and work and
you got a lot of
that.
stuff going on. Yeah, that's a good direction to move into. But before we even go there, I was thinking about the whole communication factor. How does or what's your idea as to, does sex outside of the bedroom translate into sex inside the bedroom? Better communication outside of the bedroom translate into better communication in the bedroom. What's that looking like?
Good communication outside the bedroom, good communication inside the bedroom.
Okay.
And I think that sex has been used as a tool for makeup sex, or some of the best talking is done after sex, because once we have orgasms, it produces oxytocin, which we know is the hormone that produces the urge to bond, the urge to attach, the urge to nurture and open up. So if women that have just had children are drunk off the stuff, know. But if you're open to talking about it, so after an orgasm, you're going to be able to communicate better and talk about things better and everything. If you can't talk to your partner about who's doing the dishes or where you want to go for dinner, how are you going to be able to talk to him about where your spots are? Right.
That's a great point. And you mentioned the whole the work-life balance. You've got so much stuff going on. You have chores to do. Somebody's got to pick up the kids. One kid is whining about wanting Doritos. The other kid's whining that they broke their iPod. And it's like, you have all these little stressors, environmental stressors going on. How does that affect what's going on in the bedroom?
Well, I think if you don't have a partner that you feel really is dedicated to your needs and there is a large orgasm gap, then sex is going to feel like just another chore on the list to do. So, for all the men out there that want more sex, help out around the house. Do a chore or
all
two.
All the men around the world are like, oh, stop saying that.
But, I think it's important in that, what I call the witching hour, if your spouse works outside the home and they've been working all day and they come home and the kids, and you got to feed them and you got to do supper and you got to try to have some time together and everything else, or you're on your phone and disengaged, and then resentment grows. Sex is an opportunity to connect, and if you're not you can't just connect there. That'd be the one connection spot. It has to be all things connected, or
absolutely.
And if you don't have great sex, then the way you chew is going to get on my nerves,
Oh
so
my gosh,
when
so
sex
true.
is an issue, it's a big issue.
Yeah, absolutely. I just had a conversation with one of my clients, and she has a 2-year-old, and she's currently pregnant, and her and her husband have not really been intimate, and they're going through their changes, and so we talked about before you were husband and wife, and before you were mom and dad, you were husband and wife, and so they've just been kind of stuck in mom and dad mode, and it's like you got to go back and identify how you became husband and wife, because you guys got a good foundation, but there's something missing there.
And I think in the beginning, a lot of new couples call each other mom and dad because they think it's cute and they're so elated to be parents, and but you don't want to have sex with your mom or your dad. And so I think I discourage clients into calling themselves like mom and dad, like, names. Hey, mom, I don't want to be called, I don't want my partner to call me mom.
Gotcha.
To each his own, and that's fine. Whatever, I am non-judgmental.
Right.
I don't think it facilitates or speaks to a sexual opportunity.
I gotcha.
If
not
you're calling
talk.
me mom.
Yeah.
I mean, some people might have some fantasies, whatever. But
Oh, Oedipus.
Yeah, it doesn't facilitate that sexual atmosphere. And I think sexual desire is not so much you see something and it makes you hot and bothered. It is women and men sometimes need to be touched and kissed and caressed and those subtle ways that we have foreplay that aren't just goal oriented for sexual acts.
Right. So. One of your followers asked a question about sex during pregnancy. What was that question?
There are several questions.
Okay.
Anywhere from feeling insecure to, having sex. I feel like humor is a really great way to, play with positions and laugh about it and not feel uncomfortable. But I mean, it is hard to have sex if you are feeling uncomfortable about your body and everything. But sex is great when you're pregnant. It's great for you. It's great for the baby. It is, just a little bit more cumbersome. So you have to have fun with it. I'm a huge fan of humor.
Yeah.
So incorporate
I think
that.
it's hilarious that when you're 9 months pregnant and you really just want to have this baby and the doctor says, well, the best way to, get this labor going is to have sex. And you're like, what? I feel like a cow. My bladder hurts.
I was like, let's do it. Let's get this baby out of here.
Yes. That's right. This is how we got here.
Yes.
This is how we're going to finish this thing.
Yes.
That's awesome. Well, for those of you who are just joining us saying, Dr. Tate, what do you have? What are you talking about today? I have in the studio co-hosting with me Ms. Morgan E. Ray, and we are talking about all things sex and relationships. We've had a number of folks send questions in, and we're just talking about all sorts of things, orgasms and sexual compatibility. And when we come back after the break, we're going to talk more about desire discrepancies, which means I want it 10 times, he wants it twice. He wants it 10 times in the morning when I have things to do and the kids are waking up. And we're going to talk a little bit about everything. Yeah. Again, if you want to hear some more from Ms. Morgan E. Ray, you can go to www.sextherapycharlotte.com. We will be back after the break for more. Welcome back to WDRB Media and WGIV, the soul of Charlotte. And welcome to those streaming live through the free TuneIn radio app. You are listening to Meditate Mingle. I'm your host, Dr. Melissa Tate, sitting by with Ms. Morgan E. Ray. She is relationship and sex therapist. And we've been talking about all sorts of fun and sexy things.
Yeah. All sorts of good stuff.
All sorts of good stuff. So after the break, before the break, we were talking about kind of sexual compatibility, which takes us into the arena of talking about desire. When one person has more sexual desire than the other, what do we do with that?
Oh, that's a difficult one, too.
Yeah.
And, I think you and I discussed a little bit prior about what the history of each individual is. So if there's some trauma there, if there's some body issues, self-esteem issues, all of that plays a part.
Right.
But again, I feel like with desire discrepancies, it's two things that come to mind. One is that, what I've said over and over, communication, penis and vagina are not bad words. We need to talk about them. The second thing is love languages. So how do you receive love?
Right.
How do you show love? I think that, when sex is a real priority for one person and not for the other, what else is happening there and how do we negotiate it?
Yeah.
Because, and I bet that you'll get some, maybe some take back from this, but sometimes you're not going to want sex all the time.
Yeah,
and
that happens.
I'm by no means promoting doing anything that you don't want to do, but sometimes you just got to give it the old
college try,
because that's, the desire doesn't come from your vagina or your penis. It comes from your feeling of this is what my partner needs to feel close to me, and this is what I need to do to nourish my relationship.
Yeah.
And so I think that's important.
Yeah, that's a good point, though, because I've certainly had that conversation with some of my clients in practice, which is, we haven't had sex in a long time. We don't feel emotionally connected. And what I know about women is that we kind of have sex with our brain. And if we don't feel like we are, being validated and we're emotionally supported, and like you said something earlier about, help out more around the house. If you're feeling exhausted, I'm not feeling sexy. I'm not feeling sexy because you pissed me off earlier. know, I'm not feeling sexy because, you know, I'm tired of running around behind these kids all day.
And it's another chore.
It's another, yes, sex becomes another chore. And honestly, a turnoff. Like, don't touch me because I'm still kind of resentful and pissed off towards you. Yeah, yeah.
And the timing, too. You kind of mentioned during the commercial break of if you need it in the morning and that's your opportune time. And I recommend this a lot with individuals suffering with erectile dysfunction. You know, typically men wake up with an erection, and sometimes you got to take that advantage of that opportunity. But like you said, sometimes the morning isn't good for one partner or not.
Yeah.
So some of the desire discrepancies could come in from conflicting schedules.
Yeah.
And sometimes in sessions we just figure that out and work it out based upon that.
Good point. Good point. Before we talked about, you mentioned trauma.
Yes.
And so one of my followers said, how come it seems like sex is valued a whole lot less when you have been violated by someone at a young age, that you can love the act of sex, but it just feels physical. So that kind of piggybacks on the physical, emotional piece that we were talking about. So from a trauma perspective, I mean, the person who wrote this email said violated. So definitely there's an intrusion on your personal space, on your personal boundaries, and especially if it happened on a young age, it kind of thwarts your growth and leaves you emotionally stuck at that space. And you learn to associate, as you talked before, you learn to associate that negative experience with sex. You learn to enjoy the actual physical act of sex, but emotionally you've been damaged. And that's that trauma response. Is just, you've learned not to connect, to really disconnect the emotional experience from the physical experience.
Right. And I think your whole identity is fractured in that your ability to trust your body and others, you know, and that's tough. I know a lot of people, and we all can compartmentalize things to a degree. And so sometimes that's a great coping mechanism, and then at some point it becomes a coping mechanism that doesn't work in our favor. And you know, that I think that's one of those things, is to get some help around the trauma and heal from the trauma, and really learn who you want to be as a sexual being, and what do you want sex to mean to you, you know, and how you can make it happen.
Yes. And you and I were talking before show, kind of pre-recording. You have a lot of clients that have faced some sexual trauma, and you talked a lot about, you know, the male population in particular who've been traumatized as children and struggle as an adult.
And I think, unfortunately, you know, I could get on a soapbox of how we raise our men and women, and so, you know, the statistics out there are 1 in 6 men have been abused or molested by a friend or a family member or something. But I believe personally, based on what I see, that it's the same.
Underreported.
Yes. Yeah. That, you know, for women it's 1 in 3, 1 in 4. I believe it to be the same for men.
Equal.
Yes. And that, I mean, it's heartbreaking, but we can't do anything about it if you're silent about it. And so, you know, becoming empowered and speaking about those things and not letting it eat you up inside, and knowing that how you're going to build around that there's always going to be that piece of you, but how are you going to build up around it?
And that comes a lot with just kind of re-experiencing healthy relationships, because of course if you're in an abusive relationship, or if you've been traumatized as a child, that's an unhealthy connection with sexuality, and so you have to kind of re-experience that as an adult in a healthy way. And you work a lot with couples on that.
And parenting too, how we talk to our kids about safe touch, no touch, and how we are as a parent. You know, by no means am I blaming parents at all. I'm just saying, like, talk with your children. How you respond to their abuse is really a changing point for them. I've had some clients that, you know, when they told their parents about the abuse, they were beaten, you know. And I think, so response of trauma is a huge thing, and then how we're talking about good touch, bad touch, all that sort of thing.
Good point. All good stuff. on a lighter note, where if we kind of digress away talking about trauma, and we just kind of go back to talking about couples work and reconnecting, what is one of the biggest things that you recommend as a sex and relationship therapist? What's one of the biggest things that you recommend for your couples when they're trying to reconnect sexually?
Okay. So this, being a clinician, a lot of times the issue or what's becoming an issue in the relationship has been there between 4 and 6 years before they even come to the door. So a lot of times when they come through the door, they are ready for it to be fixed. And, we show that, you can see benefits from counseling between 4 to 8 sessions or 6 to 12 sessions, which can look like a session a month for a year, or but it's a process. And so I think the quick fix is, the word that I hear all the time is we just need a reset. We just need a reset. Well, okay, what does that reset look like for you? Are you going to be patient enough to get that reset?
Yeah.
Because I think people set the bar really high and then they stumble along the way and then they give up.
They get frustrated.
Yeah. And we live in a culture where it's easy to give up. And, like I said, by no means am I a fan of emotional or physical abusive relationships, but I'm a fan of relationships.
Absolutely.
And so I think patience and openness. I mean, you really need to open yourself up to your own flaws.
Good point.
I mean,
be honest.
Yeah, we don't want to see that. I mean, who likes being criticized, or who likes being told you're not doing this right, or you're not giving me what I need? But you got to listen.
Receive the information. Yes. Yeah. When I'm working with couples, I kind of start there too, which is, what happens between you and somebody else is 50% your responsibility. You're bringing something to that dynamic. It's happening between the two of you. It's not one person that's doing something and the other person is just a fly on the wall or a brick wall. You have a response. Every action has a reaction. Every situation has a response. And so it's kind of like a dance between two people. And we got to look at, what are you bringing to the dance and what are you bringing to the dance? And just kind of look closely at self before we play the blame game.
And the blame game's easy, but typically when I have clients that come and that blame everything on their partner, they're normally the ones that are doing most of it.
Are you listening, people?
Yes, but I think give each other a chance. So tell them, okay, I need this to change, and then give time for that change to take place. I had something that I was going to say earlier, but it flew out.
It flew out of your brain. It happens. It happened to me too when we were talking earlier. It's all good.
There's just so many things I want to cover. I'm so passionate about it. So it's I want to give people things to be helpful.
And it's good conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, at some point we'll all be in a relationship or have been in a relationship, and you're all probably listening to us and thinking about things that have happened in your past, or maybe thinking about things that are happening currently in your relationship, and you're just like, what do I do about it? So tell us again, where is your practice located for those people that are really looking for a relationship with sex therapy?
It's located in kind of the Plaza Midwood area, but 335 North Caswell. And you can find me on www.sextherapycharlotte.com.
Awesome. And those of you, of course, who want to listen in and kind of get in touch with me, you can find me at drmetate.com, drmetate.com. And if you have any more relationship questions or questions about sexuality that I can forward to Morgan, please send them to Meditate and Mingle, all 3 words, meditateandmingle.wgiv@gmail.com. This has been fun.
It has. I feel like there's so much more stuff I want to talk about.
I'm like, there's got to be more that we need to be saying. Well, we will definitely have you back.
Thank you.
As needed to talk about whatever. Do you have any good projects or anything happening for you that we need to look out for?
Well, I'm speaking at a conference on March 23rd, but I think it's more for physicians. But I will let you guys know.
Please do.
We'll keep you updated.
We want to promote our friends, our Meditate and Mingle friends.
Thank you.
Well, folks, our Sunday afternoon Meditate and Mingle radio show is coming to a close. Thank you so much for joining me today, Morgan.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
And definitely go and again touch base with my sponsor, Miss Author A.J. Ekendayo. She's written a startling new book about her upbringing as a second-generation mentally ill child. Her memoir is called Hindsight is 2020. You can find it on Amazon.com. Again, if you have any questions for me, you can reach me at meditateandmingle.wgiv@gmail.com. Thank you for joining me this afternoon. I'm your host, Dr. Melissa Tate, and you're listening to Meditate and Mingle on WGIV WDRB Media and WGIV, the soul of Charlotte. WGIV family, I want to thank you for joining yours truly, Ms. Meditate and Mingle today. I hope that you found something worthy in our conversation to meditate upon or mingle about. Please come back and join me each and every Sunday afternoon at 12 p.m. And in the meantime, if you find something pressing you down, wearing you out, or keeping you shut in, just hold your head high and make sure you don't give up. I'm Ms.